Caught my husband at the prenatal checkup with his mistress, I aborted our twins, and my ex-husband went mad. I lay on the operating table, signing away the lives of the twins Ryan and I were expecting, while he was next door at the prenatal checkup with his first love. The moment the nurse's cold instrument entered my body, I sent him one last message: Ryan, congratulations, your wish has come true, you're cut off from having descendants. Later, he clutched that blood-stained ultrasound printout, kneeling outside my door for 3 days and nights, crying until he vomited blood, begging me to see him one more time. Congratulations, it's twins, and they're developing very well. The doctor's words were like a heavenly melody. I gripped that ultrasound photo so tightly my fingertips trembled. Those 2 tiny gestational sacs in the picture were the miracle Ryan and I had waited 3 years for. I could finally straighten my back and tell that harsh mother-in-law that it wasn't that I couldn't have children, it was just that the timing wasn't right. Pulling out my phone, I dialed Ryan's number, my heart racing. "Hello, Laura?" His voice sounded a bit tired and somewhat impatient. I swallowed the good news I was about to share and switched to a gentle tone. "Ryan, are you still busy? Can you come home early today?" "No, I have a big project to follow up on today, can't leave." He paused. "What's wrong? Is your mom giving you a hard time again?" "No, I just missed you." Hearing his perfunctory concern, I smiled and hung up. It's okay, he said he was busy at work, so I'd go to his office and give him the biggest surprise ever. Half an hour later, I stood downstairs at Ryan's company building, holding the carefully packed lunch, but no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't find his car. On a whim, I opened the location on my phone, and the red representing him was fixed in the obstetrics and gynecology building of the city center hospital. My heart sank sharply. Why was he here? Was his mother-in-law feeling unwell? There was no time to think further. I grabbed a taxi and rushed to the hospital like a madwoman. In the obstetrics corridor, the smell of disinfectant mingled with the cries of newborns and the laughter of their families. Clutching the ultrasound report, my palms were drenched in cold sweat. Just as I was about to call him, a familiar figure caught my eye. Ryan was coming out of an examination room, moving cautiously, and in his arms, he was supporting a woman. Sunny. The white moonlight he hid deep in his heart, never daring to touch. Sunny's face was pale, one hand resting on her lower abdomen, the other clutching a prenatal checkup report identical to the one in my hand. Ryan was bending down, fussing over her with utmost tenderness. "I told you not to get angry. What if you make yourself sick?" "How can I not be angry?" Sunny's voice cracked with tears. "When are you going to divorce that bitch Laura? I don't want my child calling anyone else mom." My blood froze in an instant. Like a thief, I slunk into the nearby emergency exit, only daring to peek through the crack of the door. Ryan sighed, reached out, and pulled Sunny into his arms, soothing her softly. "Sunny, just hold on a little longer. Me and her being lunch break spouses is just to give you some security, isn't it? You know my parents are traditional, they only recognize their biological grandchildren. And with my low sperm count, this might be the only child I ever have. How could I let you suffer like this? When she gives birth, the child will be ours. I'll divorce her immediately and bring you and our son back home. By then, everything in our family will belong to our son. Husband and wife taking a nap, protection, low sperm count, once the child is born, it will be theirs." My heart aches in waves. So, that so-called spicing things up, stimulating fertility, was all a carefully planned deception. He doesn't love me, he sees me as a disposable reproductive tool. A surrogate bed for his white moonlight. Clack. The ultrasound report in my hand quietly slipped down. Those 2 tiny lives were mocking my foolishness and naivety. In the hallway, the cries of babies, the laughter of family members, all sounded clearly in my ears, yet I felt utterly cold all over. My stomach churned violently, and I leaned against the cold wall, vomiting with a heart-wrenching pain. I lifted my head, tears blurring my vision as I looked at the disheveled reflection of myself in the mirror. and suddenly, I laughed. 3 months ago, Ryan first suggested the idea of being nap-time spouses. He sat on the sofa, brows furrowed, clutching the medical report in his hand, his face etched with exhaustion and guilt. "Laura, I'm sorry. The doctor said, my condition is quite serious." "It's my fault," I said. He pulled me into his arms, resting his chin on the top of my head, his voice hoarse. "The doctor also said that we're both under too much stress, especially you, with your mom's side." Sigh. "Maybe we should try a different approach?" I looked up, tears still in my eyes, staring at him in confusion. His eyes burned with intensity. "Let's just treat this as an affair, how about that? During lunch break, just the two of us in a hotel. No mother-in-law nagging, no pressure to have children, just the most primal impulse. Laura, let's recapture the feeling we had when we first fell in love. Who knows, maybe the baby will come." I was seduced by his words. I thought this was his last effort to save our fragile marriage. I thought he still cared about me. So, I became a ridiculous mistress, sneaking around with my own legal husband. I calculated my ovulation period, booked the hotel in advance, like a prostitute waiting for her client. To add some spice, I even wore the sexy nightgown he bought for Sunny but never dared to give her. Every time, he acted so passionate, so involved, sweat dripping on me, gasping as he said he loved me. Afterwards, he would gently kiss me and say, "Laura, you're so wonderful." Then, I would carefully straighten his shirt and tie, wipe away the lipstick stain accidentally left on his collar, making sure he looked impeccable and flawless as he returned to the company, back to his first love. As for me, I would go back alone to that cold house and drink that bowl of dark, bitter herbal medicine that made me want to vomit. My mother-in-law's curses would ring out punctually at mealtime. "What's the use of drinking this every day? A hen that doesn't lay eggs won't ever lay golden ones, no matter how many golden beans you feed her. Our family must have been cursed for 8 generations to marry someone like you, just taking up space and doing nothing." I kept my head down, quietly picking at my food, not uttering a word. Because Ryan told me, "Laura, just hold on a little longer. Once we have a child, everything will be fine." Yes, once we have a child. I thought I was finally waiting for that moment. I clutched that ultrasound report, showing 2 tiny gestational sacs, the greatest surprise of my life. "Once she gives birth, the child will be ours, and I'll divorce her immediately. I'm low on sperm count, this might be the only child I ever have." A lunch break couple, security. It turns out, every sweet word he whispered in the hotel bed was meant for Sunny. Every time he gave himself, he was imagining that the person beneath him was Sunny. Every humiliation I endured, every bitter pill I swallowed, was just tailoring a wedding dress for them. What am I? A free surrogate? A warm womb? A piece of trash that can be discarded at will? I slowly, very slowly crouched down and picked up the ultrasound report on the ground, soaked with tears, and stepped on by me. My fingertips brushed over those 2 tiny black dots. My children. No. They are Ryan and Sunny's children. I took out my phone, swiped across the screen, found a number, and dialed it. The call connected quickly, and a formal female voice came from the other end. "Hello, maternity department at City Central Hospital. How may I assist you?" I looked at the ultrasound report, my voice calm. "Hello, I'd like to schedule an abortion procedure, the earliest available slot. As soon as possible." "Ma'am, are you sure?" The nurse looked at the computer screen, then glanced up at me, her eyebrows knitting into a frown. "The ultrasound shows twins, both very healthy and developing well." I clenched the ultrasound printout I had stepped on. The edges of the paper were already wrinkled, but the 2 black dots remained clear. I forced a smile that was worse than crying. Healthy? Developing well? After all, it was thanks to the bitter herbal medicine that made me nauseous, and the countless humiliating secret meetings I endured. I used my own womb to carefully nurture Ryan and his white moonlight's bastard offspring. I really am a great surrogate. I'm sure, I said calmly. Now, immediately, right now. The nurse was startled by the deathly stillness in my eyes and didn't dare ask more, quickly typing on the keyboard. All right, please go pay first, then wait outside the operating room on the 3rd floor. Sitting on the cold bench, the smell of disinfectant seeped into my nostrils, relentlessly stirring my tear glands. But not a single tear fell. I took out my phone, unlocked the screen, and that all too familiar number lay at the very top of my contacts. The note read, "My Ryan." I pressed the call button. After a few busy signals, the call connected, and Ryan's impatient voice crashed down on me like a storm. "I'm in a meeting. Didn't I tell you not to call me unless it's important? Spit it out already." Listen to him, so self-righteous. The man who, in a hotel bed, gasped out that he loved me, that I was his one and only treasure, now didn't even have the patience to say another word. Probably because his white moonlight, Sunny, was right there beside him. I let out a soft laugh. "Ryan." I spoke slowly and deliberately. "I'm at the hospital in the city center, opposite the hotel where we had our first date, in the obstetrics and gynecology department. I've prepared a big surprise for you. If you rush over now, maybe you'll still get to see it." Before he could respond, I hung up the phone. He would come. He cares so much about his seed, how could he not come? "Laura." "Operating room 3. The nurse's voice rang out. I stood up and walked step by step toward that cold door. I lay on the operating table, my legs humiliatingly spread and fixed onto the cold stirrups. The shadowless lamp above shone so brightly it made my eyes ache. The doctor wore a mask, his expression hidden, only the mechanical voice echoed in my ears. "Relax, it will be over soon." Yes, soon it will be over. Soon, I will personally destroy the thing the Liu family values most. The cold instrument pierced into my body, bringing a sharp, tearing pain. I bit down hard on my lip. But this pain was nothing compared to the torment in my heart. I stared fixedly at the light above, replaying Ryan and Sunny's conversation over and over in my mind. "Once she gives birth, the child is ours. I'll divorce her immediately. I have low sperm count, this might be my only child in my lifetime, lunch break couple, insurance. Ha ha ha. With the blood of my own child, I sacrificed my ridiculous and humble love for Ryan. The flesh inside me was being stripped away bit by bit, the pain growing ever clearer. Tears finally surged forth uncontrollably. "Ryan, didn't you want a child? Didn't you say this was your only hope? I refuse to give it to you. I will make sure that you, your mother, and the Liu family you care about most, will be forever, utterly, and completely cut off." The surgery was over. The doctor took off his mask, looking at my tear-streaked, smiling face with a complicated expression. "It's done. Get some rest." I felt completely drained, waves of heaviness pulsing through my abdomen. I had buried my children with my own hands, and with them, my love. Stepping through this door, I was a brand new Laura. I pushed open the operating room door, which thudded heavily as it swung. Leaning against the cold wall, I inched my way out step by step. The anesthesia hadn't fully worn off, and the dull ache in my lower belly made every move agonizing. A figure approached from a distance. Ryan arrived surprisingly fast. Dressed in a perfectly tailored designer suit, his hair immaculately styled, his handsome face was etched with impatience. Seeing me in this sorry state, his brows furrowed even tighter. "Laura, what are you causing a scene about this time? Sunny just finished her checkup and isn't feeling well. It took me ages to settle her down. You better have some big news, or else." He looked me up and down with contempt. I smiled. The metallic taste of blood surged up my throat, but I forced it back down. I pulled my pale lips into a dazzling smile at him. "Don't rush, my Ryan." I leaned against the wall and slowly walked over to him. A kind nurse tried to come to my aid, but he silenced her with a sharp glare. Big news? Of course I have. I pulled 2 papers from my pocket. One was the signed consent form for the surgery. The other was the ultrasound of the twins that was supposed to bring joy. But now, stamped clearly on it was a dark red fingerprint, the blood that had just flowed from my body. I raised my hand, summoning all my strength, and slammed those 2 flimsy sheets of paper hard onto his hypocritical face. Smack! The papers softly slid down, landing on his polished, expensive shoes. Ryan froze. I looked at him, speaking each word clearly and distinctly. Your seed is gone. 2 of them, twins. I personally took them away. The air was deathly silent. Ryan's expression shifted constantly, ending in anger. What the hell did you say? He suddenly lunged forward, grabbing my shoulder. Laura! You're crazy. His eyes bloodshot, he screamed at me wildly. Those are my children. Those are my children. Our family's only hope. How dare you? How dare you? A sharp pain shot through my shoulder, and the heaviness in my lower abdomen grew increasingly acute. I just looked at him coldly, at his face twisted with rage. So ugly. I slowly pulled out a cold smile. Your child? Ryan, from the moment you decided to lie to me, to treat me like a surrogate. They are mine alone. And I don't want them anymore. The hand gripping my shoulder suddenly stiffened. The raging fury in his eyes vanished in an instant. He stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. His whole body began to tremble, his lips quivering, unable to utter a single word. Yes. What he cared about most, what he was proud of, the seed he used to cement his position, I had destroyed with my own hands. I watched him crumble bit by bit, a twisted sense of pleasure rising in my heart. Ryan was still kneeling on the ground, like a dog with its spine broken. As I was savoring his disgrace, a sharp voice rang out. Laura! You damn wretched woman! My mother-in-law pushed through the crowd, followed by a few curious relatives. Without even glancing at my trembling figure, her gaunt fingers nearly poked me in the nose. Where is my grandson? You worthless hen, finally pregnant, and you dare to get rid of it? She trembled with rage, spitting saliva all over my face. I'll kill you, you poisonous woman. Murderer. A slick, shining slap, carried by the wind, struck my face hard. I instinctively turned to the side. My weakened body made my movement slow for a moment. But in that moment, Ryan suddenly sprang up from the floor and grabbed my mother-in-law's wrist. Mom! Stop hitting her! My mother-in-law froze, staring at her son in disbelief. Ryan, you're protecting her? She killed your son. Both of them. Ryan's face twisted in pain. He looked at me with pleading eyes. He was afraid of me. Afraid I would reveal something even more humiliating. Seeing him like this, I suddenly found it amusing. That's right, Ryan, why are you protecting me? I pulled my phone out of my pocket and waved it in front of my mother-in-law. Mom, don't rush to act, and don't rush to pity your precious grandson. First, listen to something. I chuckled softly and pressed play. The volume was turned all the way up. Ryan's clear and gentle voice echoed through the silent hallway, strikingly ironic. I have low sperm count again, the doctor said it's difficult. Your health isn't good, how could I bear to let you suffer? Once Laura is born, we'll bring the child over, the child is ours. She loves me so much, she believes everything I say. The air froze. The slap my mother-in-law raised hung motionless in midair. The muscles in her face twitched wildly, her eyes bulging as if they might pop out. She stared fixedly at Ryan, her lips trembling. Low sperm count? The crowd gathered around, eager for drama, instantly erupted. Oh my God, turns out the man's the problem? Low sperm count? No wonder they've been married 3 years with no kids, always blaming the daughter-in-law. Absolutely despicable. Not only did he deceive me into marriage, but now he wants to steal the child for his mistress? This family is truly beyond redemption. One comment after another nailed Ryan to the pillar of shame. The pride he once held so dearly was torn to shreds by me, thrown to the ground to be trampled on by anyone. Laura. He finally snapped out of his extreme humiliation, his eyes bloodshot as he lunged at me. Give me the phone. I didn't dodge. I simply lifted my eyes and looked at him quietly. His hand froze just a centimeter away from the phone. As if burned by something, he jerked his hand back sharply. He looked at me as if I were a demon clawing its way out of hell. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, revealing a cold, bitter smile. I looked at my mother-in-law, whose face had already turned ashen. I steadied myself against the wall, took a step closer to her, and whispered, "Mom, do you still think I can't have children now? Or is it that?" I paused, savoring the shattered expression on her face, and spoke each word with ruthless precision. Your precious son simply can't, can he? The hospital farce ended with my mother-in-law rolling her eyes back and being carried away by relatives in a flurry of hands. I returned to that so-called home. The moment I opened the door, a wave of rancid leftover food hit me. Everything here made me want to vomit. Ignoring Ryan trailing behind me like a lost dog, I went straight into the bedroom and dragged out a dust-covered suitcase. Piece by piece, I threw my things into it. Laura, Ryan's voice was hoarse. Don't touch anything at home, it's all yours, all yours. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. I ignored him, my hands moving without pause. He completely panicked. With a thud, he dropped to his knees in front of me, clutching my calves, crying so hard his tears and snot streamed down his face. Laura, I was wrong, I really was. You can hit me, you can curse me, whatever you want. He raised his hand and slapped himself hard across the face. Smack. A sharp, clear sound. I'm the bastard. I'm not even human. I was blinded by greed. Smack. Another one. His face swelled visibly by the second, blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, tears and snot smeared all over his face, utterly miserable. Laura, look at me, he tilted his ridiculous and pitiful face, trying to find even a trace of emotion in my eyes. Let's start over, okay? I've completely cut ties with Sunny, I won't see her again. We still have a chance, didn't the doctor say I'm just oligospermic, not azoospermic? We can still have children, we can. I finally stopped packing. Looking down on him from above, as if staring at a pile of disgusting garbage. Start over? Ryan, you don't deserve that. I took a document out of my bag and threw it onto his swollen pig-like face. Sign this. The divorce agreement. Ryan's crying abruptly stopped, his whole body trembling. His trembling hand picked up those few pages. The property, you don't want a single share? When he saw the section on property division, a flash of shock and relief crossed his eyes. Of course, he probably thought I just wanted a divorce. He probably thought that I, a fool who loved him to the bone, wouldn't throw a tantrum with any real bite. I looked at him coldly. Keep reading. His gaze slowly shifted to the additional clause on the last page. There was only a brief line written there. Black, bold. I, Ryan, voluntarily relinquish all reproductive rights for life and will have this recorded in my personal file, never to be changed. Ryan's pupils suddenly constricted, the color draining completely from his face. No. His lips trembled as he suddenly lifted his head, his eyes filled with fear and despair. Laura, you're crazy, he shouted, scrambling to his feet and trying to grab my collar. You're trying to kill me. You're trying to ruin me socially. I didn't move, I even took a step forward, looking him straight in the eye. Kill you? Your life should have ended long ago. Ryan, aren't you the one who cares most about continuing the Liu family line? Isn't your mother desperate for a golden grandson? I want you, and your mother, to watch helplessly as the Liu family line ends completely with you. I want you to live your whole life drenched in the scorn and whispers of others. I want you to be the last of your line forever. Ryan lost it completely, roaring as he lunged at me. Just then, there was a steady knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Ryan froze mid-move. I turned my head toward the door, a deeper smile curling at the corner of my lips. Go open the door, I said softly. Maybe it's your future mistress, here to inspect her new home. Ryan's face went pale, and he stiffly turned around. His hands trembled so much he couldn't even grip the doorknob. I crossed my arms leisurely, savoring his fear. Finally, the door was pulled open. Standing there were two tall men in work uniforms. They leaned in, their gaze passing over Ryan and settling on me, respectfully asking, Miss Laura? We're from the moving company. Are we ready to start now? Ryan whipped his head back to look at me, the fear in his eyes instantly turning into incredulous anger. Laura. You called the movers? Of course I'm taking my things with me, I replied calmly. No, he shouted, throwing his arms wide to block the doorway. I won't allow it. I won't let you leave. All this stuff was bought by me. You can't take a single thing. I smiled. Ryan, have you forgotten that this house, including you, only exists because of my parents' money? Everything you're wearing, everything on your hands, isn't it all from me, Laura? Now, I'm taking back what's mine. Got a problem with that? I didn't look at him again. I turned to the movers at the door and said, move it. Treat him like a broken piece of furniture. The movers took the order without hesitation, bypassing the nearly crazed Ryan and began packing. Get out. All of you, get out. Ryan tried to push them away but was easily blocked by one of the movers. He could only watch helplessly as the home he'd lived in for 3 years was emptied piece by piece. The women's clothes in the wardrobe, the bottles and jars on the dressing table, even the hair tie I used in the bathroom, all were swiftly packed into boxes by the movers. I took away every trace of myself, draining all the life from this house. Only after the last box was loaded onto the truck did I turn around and cast one final glance at him. He slumped in the middle of the chaotic living room, his swollen, red face now ashen and lifeless. I was gone. Without a trace of hesitation. In the days that followed, my world was peaceful. His world, however, had completely unraveled. My phone became his only outlet for release. Laura, I was wrong. Please come back. The house is so cold, I can't sleep without you. I'll give you whatever you want, money, the house, everything. Just don't leave me. Laura. Where the hell are you? If you don't show up, I'll die right in front of you. Heh, do you think I don't dare? Amid the barrage of messages, countless missed calls were mixed in. I didn't reply to a single one, didn't answer any calls. Until the new intern at the company, a timid young girl, cautiously handed me my phone. On the screen was a photo. Outside the company building, rain pouring down in torrents. Ryan was kneeling there stiffly in the downpour, drenched from head to toe, water from his hair streaming down his cheeks, indistinguishable whether it was rain or tears. He tilted his head back, staring toward our office. Sister Laura, that seems to be your husband. He's been kneeling all night, and with this heavy rain, he might get hurt. I took the phone, zoomed in on the photo, and examined it carefully. I let out a light laugh and handed the phone back to her. Let him kneel there and get drenched. Remember to call an ambulance for me, I'm not paying the medical bills. The young girl was dumbfounded. I didn't pay any more attention to what was happening downstairs until late at night, when my phone started vibrating wildly again. For the first time ever, I answered it. On the other end, it wasn't Ryan's voice, but a noisy commotion, followed by my mother-in-law's sharp, bitter curses. You useless piece of trash. How did I end up giving birth to someone like you? Low sperm count. You actually have low sperm count. My God. You've brought shame to our entire family. And now look. Your wife has run off. The grandchild is gone. You've doomed our family line. You're nothing but a beast. The sounds of crying, cursing, and smashing things blended together, shaking my ears painfully. And that Sunny. That shameless vixen. It's all her fault. You chased away the wife who was going to have your children for you, just for that useless hen. I'm going to tear her apart. I won't let her off. In the background, Ryan's suppressed, painful sobs came and went. Laura. Laura. He finally snatched the phone, his voice hoarse. Laura, I'm sick. I feel so awful. Please come back and see me, okay? Baby, our baby. He suddenly started rambling. I saw them, they were right by the bed watching me, they're blaming me. Laura, please come back, let's find our baby. I quietly listened to the hell on the other end of the line. Listening to his and his mother's wailing, listening to his mad murmurs. I said nothing, hung up directly, and leisurely dragged his number into the blacklist. 3 days after I blocked him, the doorbell rang. Ring after ring. I ignored it. Soon, there was pounding on the door. Bang. 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 Laura. I know you're in there. Open the door. Ryan's frantic voice echoed. Neighbors peeked out, then recoiled at the sight of his bloodshot eyes and the heavy stench of alcohol. If he kept this up, the police would be called. I leisurely finished the last sip of milk in my glass, then walked over and opened the door. The man outside was a far cry from the polished, respectable Phoenix man I remembered. Scruffy beard, sunken eyes, reeking of booze and something sour. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. He grabbed my wrist. Laura, you really are here. I've been looking for you everywhere. Come home with me, let's go home, okay? His voice trembled as he pleaded. I pulled my hand away and looked at him coldly. This is my home. He was stunned. No, our home isn't like this, our home. Suddenly, he couldn't continue. His tall figure collapsed before me, kneeling and clutching my legs, sobbing uncontrollably. Laura, I was wrong. I really was wrong. It's all my fault. I'm the bastard. I shouldn't have lied to you. I shouldn't have touched Sunny. You can hit me, you can scold me, do whatever you want, just don't leave me. He cried so hard he was gasping for breath, tears and snot smeared all over his face, utterly miserable. I stood quietly, waiting for him to finish crying, then slowly crouched down. He immediately looked up at me, eyes full of desperation. I reached out, gently stroking his haggard cheek, my touch as tender as it once was. His sobs abruptly stopped, disbelief flooding his eyes. Laura, you. I looked at him, my own eyes reddening, my voice choking. Ryan, I've been thinking a lot these past few days. I thought about our babies. At the mention of the children, his body trembled violently, the color draining from his face as he shut his eyes in pain. Don't say it. No, I have to. I interrupted him, speaking each word deliberately. They were so small, and now they're gone. I failed them, and you did too. Tears fell from my eyes at just the right moment, landing hot on the back of his hand. Shall we try again, okay? Ryan suddenly opened his eyes wide, his pupils contracting sharply. What did you say? I said, I looked him straight in the eye and dropped that fatal bait. Let's do IVF. Let's bring our baby back. The air went dead silent. Ryan was completely stunned. He stared at me blankly, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. Hope rekindled in his ashen gray eyes. Okay. Laura. I'm willing. I'm willing to do anything. Overjoyed and babbling, he grabbed my hand, afraid I'd change my mind. I'll contact the best hospital right away. The best doctors. Money is no object. I weakly smiled. Yes, it has to be the best. I heard the success rate is higher abroad, and the cost will be around 2 million. 2 million. That amount was enough to completely drain him. No problem. Without a second thought, he agreed immediately. Don't worry about the money. I'll figure it out. You just focus on getting better. It was as if he'd been injected with a shot of adrenaline. He came alive, carefully helping me up, his eyes filled with wild joy. That very afternoon, I received a call I had expected. It was my mother-in-law. Hello? Is this Laura? Oh, my dear daughter-in-law. On the other end, her voice was obsequious and ingratiating. Laura, it's all my fault before. I'm just an old fool, don't take it to heart. Ryan already told me you're going for IVF, and I support you. I support you 100 times over. If money's tight, I still have some pension saved up here, I'll give it all to you. When are you coming home? Mom made your favorite black chicken soup to nourish you properly. I listened to her hypocritical concern, my stomach churning violently. No need, Mom. My voice was cold. We're taking care of things outside. The doctor said to keep a happy mood. One sentence shut her down. A week later, Ryan appeared before me, weary and worn from the road. But the light in his eyes was frighteningly bright. He held out a thick stack of documents like a treasure. Property sale contracts, vehicle transfer agreements, and several high-interest loan contracts. The interest rates were shockingly high. Laura, look, we've raised enough money. He grinned like a fool, but the redness in his eyes betrayed the exhaustion and torment he had endured these past days. We can go to the best hospital anytime. He held my hand, full of hope. This time, we will definitely find the baby. I lowered my eyes, looking at the contracts, at his desperate gamble. Then, I lifted my head and gave him the gentlest smile. All right. On the day of the surgery. In the top-tier VIP room of the private hospital, the heating was on full blast, yet I felt chilled to the bone. Ryan gripped my hand tightly, his palm sweaty, his whole being in a state of extreme excitement. Laura, are you nervous? Don't be afraid, the doctor said it will be quick, he whispered. Last night, I dreamed of them, a boy and a girl, both looking just like you, smiling at me. Our names are already picked out, my mother-in-law said from the side, her eagerness making me nauseous. She had shed her usual sharpness, her face now creased like a chrysanthemum in full bloom. Laura, are you thirsty? Mom will peel you an apple, she said. Once the transfer is done, we'll go home. I've made a tonic soup that will make you healthy and plump, just wait and see, you'll give me a big golden grandson. She rubbed her hands together, her eyes fixed intently on my belly as if it already held a treasure chest of gold. Watching their one-upmanship, I felt a cold emptiness settle deep inside me. The nurse knocked and came in, her smile professional. Sir, madam, everything is ready. You may proceed to the operating room. Ryan sprang up in an instant, eager to help me. Here we go. Honey, let's go. But I sat motionless on the bed. I lifted my eyes and looked at his hopeful face. Then, I gently shook my head. I'm not going. Ryan's smile froze on his face. Laura, what did you say? Don't joke around. My mother-in-law grew anxious too and rushed over to grab my arm. Oh, my dear daughter-in-law. We're already at the door, what kind of tantrum is this? Get up quickly. I shook off her hand with such force that she staggered. I stood up and looked Ryan straight in the eyes, speaking each word clearly. I said, I'm not going. I'm not having this child. You're crazy. Ryan finally snapped, yelling at me, his eyes bloodshot. Laura. Do you have any idea what I went through to scrape together those 2 million? The house. The car. I even borrowed from loan sharks. And now you're telling me you won't have the baby? I know. I smiled. I just want you to taste it, the feeling of losing everything, pouring out all your wealth, betting all your hopes on the line, and then being stomped straight into hell. His breath caught sharply. I pulled a document from my bag and slapped it down on the table in front of him. Consent form for embryo destruction. My signature was already at the bottom, sharp and decisive. You, he pointed at the paper, his lips trembling, his face pale as death. When I aborted those twins, lying on the operating table, listening to the cold beeping of the machines, it felt exactly like this. My voice was calm, full of hope, only to be plunged utterly into the abyss of despair. Ryan, the pain I feel, I want you to feel it twice as much right now. No. The mother-in-law let out a sharp, piercing scream and lunged forward, trying to tear the document apart. You wicked woman! How dare you! I'll fight you to the death. I took a step back, dodging her frenzied claws, then pulled out another item. A medical evaluation report. I unfolded it and held it up right in front of Ryan's eyes, which were barely able to focus. Look closely. The twin pregnancy termination surgery caused severe intrauterine adhesions and permanent damage to the basal layer of the endometrium. I paused, watching as his and his mother's faces instantly drained of color. The doctor said I have permanently lost the ability to be a mother. Time seemed to stop at that moment. The mother-in-law's scream caught in her throat, and she collapsed weakly to the ground. Ryan stared at me intently, as if looking at a stranger. I met his gaze, speaking each word deliberately. Ryan, you personally killed your child, and with your own hands, destroyed my right to be a mother. Now, I return this despair to you, exactly as it is, back to you and your mother. The family line you were so proud of ends with you. Ends with you. Ryan muttered those words repeatedly, his eyes vacant. He smiled, and as he smiled, tears began to fall. Baby, my baby, don't be afraid, Daddy's here. Daddy has come for you. He started babbling nonsense, flailing his arms and legs as he spun around the hospital room. His mother-in-law lay on the floor, making strange ho-ho sounds from her throat, her eyes rolling back as she fainted completely. I watched this human tragedy with cold indifference. I turned around, dragging my suitcase, step by step, out of this suffocating hospital room. The sunlight at the end of the corridor was glaringly bright.